You hear me. He does not hear me, so there's a board setting that's wrong. It's the one that says, hold on a minute, stand by. Mike? Did you disconnect me, man? Are you still with me? What's going on? Hold on. It says we're connected. All right. Yeah. It says we're connected. I don't know why I'm not hearing you. We've got everything correct. Play something down the line. Play something down the line. From the network, like you normally would. I do not hear anything if you're doing that. Okay, so what changed? Anybody know? Because theoretically, I'm all hooked up. Is Chris hanging around? Nothing on this end changed. Nothing on this end changed. Not that we're aware of. But I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything. I don't hear anything from the network feed. In other words, I don't know when I'm going to go on except by guessing. Hey, Phil, you're going to need to find out what's going on. Get on the phone with somebody. Get on the phone with Mike. Do something. North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. How are you? I am John David Wells. Our telephone number is area code 844-927-6691. That's 844-927-6691. Looking forward to hearing from you as soon as you can get in touch. We've got lots of things to talk about. Mainly, whose button is bigger than whose? There's a real contest going on between a couple of world leaders. Don't know exactly what the story is on that, but apparently what's been going on, North Korea announced they were opening up communication channels with South Korea. This after a spiffy new I've got a square head haircut by Kim Jong-un. The interesting thing about it is he's wearing a gray suit, like a businessman suit. Not that I'm going to shoot somebody to death with an anti-aircraft weapon suit that he keeps wearing from time to time. I guess it's easier to clean. With the lapels and everything. Anyway, The announcement from Kim Jong-un comes a day after South Korea proposed that they might coordinate talks with North Korea about the upcoming Winter Olympics. Don't know what's going to happen there, but I think it's probably a good idea that those two people get together and those two countries get together and try to figure that out. Now, the interesting thing about this is a sidebar to this happy talk between North and South Korea. It was announced that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, that he said that he had a nuclear button on his desk at all times. And so Donald Trump, our president, said this. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him I, too, have a nuclear button, but it's much bigger and more powerful than his, and my button works. Okay, that's great to know. I'm really very, very happy. I'm very pleased that indeed that's the case. Good to know. Thank you so much. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that we've got what we have here is we have two leaders playing nuclear brinksmanship, and it's always nerve-wracking. You know, you get my drift? Always nerve-wracking. And because we lived with that our whole lives. Those of us, you know, these late baby boomers, early Generation X, we had to deal with something called the Cold War, which was a flippin' drag. Because we had nuclear weapons pointed at our foreheads at all times, and it was truly annoying. This being said, the nuclear button thing led me to, well, a couple of different things. First of all, I'm not really concerned that it is likely, as a matter of fact, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to get into a nuclear exchange with North Korea. Although North Korea, if they indeed do have a flyable nuclear warhead, they've got some opportunities. They can fire one at Japan. They can fire one at South Korea or Australia, and they do have, from what we understand, they do have a somewhat capability. There is some kind of a capability that will get a North Korean missile to the United States. So what we're doing here is we're playing games with the leader of North Korea, and President Trump is tweeting that, yeah, he's got that too. What I thought you would like to know is something that I think CNN finally took a cue from some of their military advisors and said, hey, look, you need to explain that Donald Trump is not the guy that has the nuclear weapon on his, or nuclear button on his desk, and can willy-nilly, just because he feels like it, decide that what he's going to do is he's going to send a nuclear weapon somebody's way. It just doesn't work like that. The image with the president, the image of a president with his finger on a button that's capable of initiating a nuclear strike, has been used to symbolize the speed at which the process of such an order can be carried out. Contrary to popular belief, the nuclear football, which always accompanies the president, does not contain a button. It instead has equipment and decision-making papers that Trump would use to authenticate his orders and launch a strike. I've been trying to tell you this forever. The president by himself cannot press a button and cause missiles to fly. He can only give an authenticated order which others would have to follow, then missiles would fly. He's not the only one that has to give those orders. There is a chain of command, a unified chain of command that starts with the president, moves through the Secretary of Defense, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the chairman and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Dr. Peter Feaver is a professor of public policy and political science at Duke University. He told congressional lawmakers last year the president can't just do this on his own. The system is not a button where the president can accidentally lean on the desk and immediately cause missiles to fly. The decision to launch a strike requires the president to work with military aides possessing the materials he needs to order an attack, as well as personnel at all levels, from top commanders all the way down to service members working in the missile silos. Whether he is at the White House in a motorcade aboard Air Force One on a trip overseas, Trump is never more than an arm's reach away from an aide carrying the football. It rides in the same elevator, stays on the same hotel floor, is protected by the same Secret Service agents. There is a football for the vice president in case the president is incapacitated. The Presidential Emergency Satchel, as it is formally called, contains 4 things. Now, this is according to White House Military Officer Director Bill Gully's book, Breaking Cover. There's a black book listing a menu of strike options, a 3x5 card with authentication codes for the president to confirm his identity, a list of secure bunkers where the president can be sheltered, instructions for using the emergency broadcast system. While the military officers who would carry out a nuclear launch are required to work in pairs, where both must concur before they can execute a nuclear launch, there's no such check on the president's actions. There is, but there isn't. There is, but there isn't. Once again, the president has to work with other people to make this happen. Only the president of the U.S. can order the employment of nuclear weapons. This, according to retired Air Force General Robert Keeler, who testified before congressmen last year. Much of the nuclear launch process is classified. Keeler, who previously served as the commander of U.S. Strategic Command under President Barack Obama, explained there are layers of safeguards within the current system designed to ensure that any order is both legal and proportionally appropriate. This is a system controlled by human beings. Nothing happens automatically. The U.S. military does not blindly follow orders, and a presidential order to employ nuclear weapons must be legal. While the president retains constitutional authority to order some military action, Keeler explained that the nuclear decision process includes assessment, review, and consultation between the president and key civilian and military leaders, followed by transmission and implementation of any presidential decision by the forces themselves. That process is referred to as National Command Authority. General John Hyten, the commander of U.S. Strategic Command, has shared what would happen if he were ordered to launch a nuclear strike. I provide advice to the president, Hyten said in a November Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing. He'll tell me what to do, and if it's illegal, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to say, Mr. President, that's illegal. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to say, what would be legal? And then we'll come up with options of a mix of capabilities to respond to whatever the situation is and the way it works. It is not that complicated. But for all those people that said, my God, this man will be sitting at his desk with his thumb on the button to launch nuclear weapons. No. No, that is not what's going to happen at all. In fact, it's like I've been telling people. This is one of those things you do not have to worry about. If the United States, first of all, the president doesn't launch nuclear weapons. The United States launches nuclear weapons. We, the people of the United States, launch nuclear weapons. That's the way our government system is. We elect people to represent us in Washington. These people put people together so that we know what commanders are going to be commanding what particular parts of the American military. The nuclear triad, for example, Air Force, missiles, Navy, ICBMs, etc. Bombers. Although the bombing situation is not nearly as big as the nuclear submarines that carry nuclear missiles, and of course the Minuteman fields out in North Dakota and Wyoming and Montana and so on. So if you had ever worried, if you'd ever actually listened to any of these nincompoops that decided to try to tell you that Donald Trump, or tried to scare half of America by saying Donald Trump was a complete moron and could not figure out what to do if he was, he couldn't figure out what to do if someone was spoon feeding him a chart. You don't have to worry so much. The president of the United States is not going to launch nuclear weapons on his own. That is going to be a response, A state response. And it would very likely be the last possible response, the last resort to launch a nuclear weapon directly from one country to another. Make no mistake, this is a very serious problem. Make no mistake, it is a very scary proposition. We've seen films for all of our lives. The black and white ones of the Trinity test. The color ones that just came out on YouTube with some of the detonations over the Nevada test site. I have some idea of how big those weapons are because I've actually seen the Nevada test site where they exploded. Jackass Flats, Yucca Flats, which is where these explosions happened. You get an idea of how big these explosions are. And the ones that were tested out on the nuclear test range, not that large. The ones they tested out in the Pacific, on the other hand, gigantic. The reason is because they weren't just nuclear weapons. They were thermonuclear weapons. Somewhere you'll find a chart of the weapons that were used both over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Two completely different designs. One, a uranium cannon device, a projectile device. The other, a plutonium implosion device. Strangely enough, the Trinity device was the Trinity device itself was a nuclear implosion. In other words, there were high explosives that focused a blast wave on what was called a pit of plutonium that was crushed from a larger size, say just a little smaller than a volleyball, to about the size of a golf ball. It loses all control. It goes supercritical, and boom, you have a nuclear weapon. You have a nuclear explosion. That was the Fat Man device over Nagasaki. It was about 20 kilotons. These ones that they throw now are much bigger. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network. Okay, some things did change in here. We got some things unhooked and some things hooked up and so on and so forth. Call Andy Picard. Do you have his telephone number? All right, hang on a minute. Hold on. Mike, would you do me a favor? Sir. Also, would you go over to my Mike? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I can hear you now too.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that the button has to be on. Would you hand me my power supply, please? It's in my briefcase. Okay.
All right, we got a minute and a half, man.
How did that sound?
Sounded perfect. Nobody even knew any better.
Awesome. I was just looking at the clock.
Good job. Yeah, man. Thanks.
All righty then.
All right, we got 1 minute, man.
1 minute, man.
Good job on that there, man. We didn't, nobody. Chris just told me to mess with you and go like, hello?
What?
He just told me to mess with you like we couldn't hear you.
Oh, that's funny.
And go, hello?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, that's like running a 100-yard dash. That's like running a 100-yard dash. Huh?
He said it's Gary Campbell.
Oh, yeah. It's like running a 100-yard dash with a blindfold on.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
You did good, man. I'm glad my text went through quick enough for you to see.
Yeah, it went right through. That's kind of cool. Hey, Arletta, what's going on? Hi, Yvonne. Good. We can hear you. I'm so glad. Yeah, we weren't. You did not hear anything from the network because we didn't have the network turned on for some reason. Don't ask me why. Man. I'm ready. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Thanks very much for being a part of the broadcast. As soon as you feel like it, come on, join us. Do you feel lucky? Well, I hope you do, punk. No, I'm not calling you a punk. Stop it. Just be still. No, what I'm saying is that what I'm hoping is that you will join us and spend some time chatting with us regarding all manner of things. Insofar as we are very, very happy to hear you when you call. Our telephone number, again, is area code 844-927-6691. All right? That's how you get through to the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network. Donald Trump spending some time talking to various miscreants around the world. You already heard about Kim Jong-un saying, I've got a button on my desk and I'm not afraid to use it. And President Trump responding, well, I do too. And it's bigger and it works better. It actually works. Yeah, well, I don't know that I'd want to wave that, well, if you wave a red flag at a bull, what color flag do you wave at a nuclear power to get it mad? I don't know. Maybe some sort of strange glow-in-the-dark flag, something along that line. Anyway, Donald Trump is talking to other people as well. Acknowledging his push to broker peace in the Middle East has stalled, just like it has with every other president who's ever tried it. President Donald Trump appeared to threaten to cut off U.S. aid money to the Palestinian Authority, asking why the U.S. should make any of these massive future payments when Palestinians are no longer willing to talk peace. That's a great question. What are we paying for? Seems to me like we're paying them to make rockets, unguided rockets that they fly into Israeli neighborhoods and blow up little kids. Seems to me that that's what we're doing. I suggest that we get out of the financing the Palestinian terror effort business. Anyway, Trump in a pair of tweets said, we pay Palestinians hundreds of millions of dollars a year and get no appreciation or respect. They don't even want to negotiate a long overdue peace treaty with Israel. True. Why don't they want to do that? Well, because they're making a pretty handsome fortune being the anti-Jewish bigot leaders of the world, which tells you just how many just absolutely genocidal anti-Jewish bigots there are around the world. There are millions of them. They're everywhere. You know, everybody thinks that Arabs are the only people that have trouble with Jews. Palestinians, the only people that have trouble with Jews. But you do realize it's just about everyone on the planet. The Europeans are currently bent over the axle based on their hatred of Jews. So when they start talking about this problem they have with the reconstituted Ottoman Empire knocking at their door, I have a limited level of sympathy for them. I'm saying, well, this is what you've done. You know, stand up with Arabs against Israel. Stand up against Arabs. Stand with Arabs and extremist Muslims against the Jews, and pretty soon they'll start hanging out with you. Say, hey, wait a minute, we got a lot in common. But that doesn't mean that the United States has to play. I wouldn't pay the Palestinian Authority a dime. Not until I saw some good faith negotiations. And I mean good faith negotiations. Okay, if you do this, we will do this. Instead of, if you do this, we'll do this. Do we agree? Yes, we agree. We're going to do this if you do this. Okay, we've done this. Now it's time for you to do this. Well, you can go to hell. Oh, okay, that's negotiating in bad faith, which means that you have no reason to move forward with future negotiations. By the way, there are a bunch of people taking their lives in their hands, and they are demonstrating for peace and freedom and a real country again in Iran. It's very, very difficult for people like us who base our entire lives on liberty and freedom to understand what it's like to live in a totalitarian country, especially one run by a religion. But what has happened is that they are taking to the streets in Iran and demanding a better country from their government. God bless their endeavors. The President of the United States said that at the appropriate time, they will see aid from the United States. We've got to find out whether or not that government is going to go out and slaughter all of them first. Cross your fingers that they do not. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you very much. It really does help to hear that music.
Oh, yeah.
Really does. It really helps to hear the music. Let's see here. What do I want to do? I want to go here. Then I want to go here. And then I want to go here. Okay. Then I want to go here. Then I want to do this. Then I want to hit that. Then I want to hit that again. Then I want to hit this. 2 2 2 2 2 2. Ta 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 ta. Bo 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 bo. Let's see here. This. Paste. Hooey. Let's see. Goes over here.
All right, man, back in just over a minute.
I am ready. Whoa.
All right, back in 10.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. I want to thank the people at TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStreamLive.com is a very interesting page. What they do is they keep track of all the people who stream radio talk shows around the clock. And what they do is they rank them with the number of people who are listening. We were, before I came to the USA Radio Network, we were very, very fortunate to appear on this list. We were doing 8 to midnight. And we would routinely show up in the top 20, even in the top 10, with the only show that was not nationally syndicated. And that was because so many people had reached out and found us just on the internet. We have worked extremely hard with our social networking to try to do something more with that. And you'll find that, and I'm finding, that the competition level between what is 2 to 5 in the afternoon Central Time in the United States, which is 3 to 6 on the East Coast, and noon to 3 on the West Coast, is seriously difficult. As a matter of fact, as we currently stand, we are at number 81 in the nation in afternoon drive programs in the talk radio world, according to TalkStream Live. And these people could not have been nicer to me. They put me up on their list without me contacting them. And it was just one of those things where people had the people had found the Wells Report. And for all the things that they have done, I want to thank TalkStream Live. And like I said, today, we currently show up at number 81. At some point, I hope we get back in the top 10. I'd like that to happen. If you like this radio broadcast and you would like to you'd like to see it either move forward or you'd like to share it with your friends, go to the USA Radio Network website. And what you will do is you'll be able to find a listen live. It's usaradio.com. usaradio.com. And there is a little listen live button. I'll push it over here. Yes. See, that's from my computer where that's coming out. So you hit the listen live button, and what will happen is that you will be able to hear the radio broadcast, and you can tell your friends to. So if you could send that around, I certainly would appreciate it very, very much. And also you can find us, as always, on Facebook live events or the Google Hangout under The Wells Report. There, some information. This next bit of time spent politically in Washington, D.C. is going to have a lot to do with immigration. And the various parts, the various sides, the various people involved in those discussions are now beginning to flex their muscles at each other, staking out their staking out their negotiation points. President Donald Trump, for his part, is hardening his demands for a deal to protect young, undocumented immigrants from deportation. That is a dispute with congressional Democrats that hangs over the talks this week to avoid a government shutdown. Let me explain the politics for you. There is a funding bill that has to get passed to keep the government funded. Money for President Trump's wall is in that bill. The president will demand that that money remain in that bill, and the president will make very, very sure that his representatives in the Congress work expressly hard to keep the wall in front of any other legislation having to do with immigration. Because for the president to say, I'm going to build a wall, now this is the president saying that he's going to build this big, beautiful wall, and Mexico is going to be paying for it, which remains to be seen. We may end up being in a position where you and I, conservatives, are going to have to trade one thing or another in order to get an immigration deal done. Now, typically, when you deal with Democrats, what ends up happening is it's their way or the highway, and they call that bipartisanship. I call it knuckling under to the competition. The Republicans are very, very good at knuckling under the competition, but not real good at pushing their agenda, which is infuriating to me, but there you go. It's infuriating to you too. Believe me, this is something that we've been dealing with for 20 years. It's driven us crazy. The reason we have Donald Trump in office is because Donald Trump stood up and said, hey, we got to do something about immigration. Got to do something about that southern border. I'm going to build a wall there. He got elected president. He's going to build a wall there. But what are you and I going to have to put up with in order to get that wall down there? And what is your price? What are you willing to give up to have a wall mostly across the entire southern frontier of the United States? What are you willing to give up? The overly optimistic term dreamers describes a group of kids that were brought here by their parents as infants or toddlers or very small children. They don't know any other country except the United States of America. They walk like Americans. They talk like Americans. They think like Americans. For all intents and purposes, they're Americans, but they don't have legal standing in this country. The Democrat Party, seeing vulnerability in the willingness of the Republican Party to send everybody home, keeps putting these dreamers, because they dream of a time that they too can share in the greatness of the United States, the only country they've ever known. Well, I'm a little more, shall we say, succinct, straightforward, more urbane about the matter. What I say is that their parents brought them here illegally. They need to get an explanation from their parents as to why they're here and why this is the only country they've ever known. But the powers that be in political Washington, specifically on the American left, will do whatever is necessary to be able to vilify anybody on the right that actually tells the truth about immigration in the United States, that it is done as a cynical abuse of the people of the United States, a cynical abuse of American citizenship, a cynical abuse of American law. These people come to our country. They get to live any way they choose. They cannot be bothered to tell us whether they're here legally or not. They can kill us. They can rape us. They can run over us when they're drunk in their cars. They can drive without car insurance, but we can't. That's the way we find our country right now. In fact, if you're in California, you can pick up a gun that belonged to a federal officer, shoot someone to death, and be acquitted of any kind of murder crime. You could be acquitted of involuntary manslaughter. This is a guy who was deported 6 times. He's still in the country. He finds a federal officer's weapon. He shoots an American citizen to death. Oh, no problem. It's just, the American was in a bad space at a bad time. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right. So that's the way you can live in the United States if you choose to, if you're an illegal immigrant. If you're an American citizen, well, you'll get thrown under the courthouse. They will throw you under the courthouse for shooting somebody, especially if you got a CHL. If you got a CHL and you find a federal officer's weapon in a dumpster someplace and you shoot somebody with it, you can expect them to open Alcatraz prison just for you. But if you are an illegal immigrant, well, you're just one of the downtrodden. Yeah, well, we got to take care of you. So you can see why a lot of us would say, build the wall, deport anybody who doesn't belong here. And that is one of the reasons why Donald Trump got elected. Now, the question is, what will you give up? Okay, there's DACA on the table. That was something that most conservatives said, these people are going to get deported. It's against the law. Even Donald Trump said that. But suddenly, them staying in the country is back on the table. If Donald Trump builds a wall from one end of the United States border with Mexico to the other, would you accept the Dreamers being allowed to stay in the nation? 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. If the president actually built a wall from one end of the border with Mexico to the other, would you allow the Dreamers to stay in the United States? What other kinds of citizenship would you be willing to extend? It's one thing to keep the Dreamers here, but don't you have to keep their parents here too? At least one or two of them. I don't think it's reasonable to expect parents to live without their children. That being said, I don't think it's reasonable that their children live here because the parents brought them here knowing full well that they were breaking American law. Somebody's got to pay for those crimes. And I would say the people that actually want to live here should pay for those crimes, but that's not many people. Remember what they're doing. They're coming to the United States. They're living here illegally. They're sending money back to Mexico, which helps Mexico, because it's somewhere around $20 billion that is sent out of the United States to the government of Mexico, to the country of Mexico. It's the only money down there that actually gets trusted. There's a friend of mine who was a United States Marine. No, we did not serve this country for illegals. We served this country for American citizens. You see, because if you just hand out American citizenship like it's water for chocolate, American citizenship is valueless. I've already told you it's not just valueless, it's also a get into jail free card. Because like I said, a guy with 6 DUIs on his record can go for number 7, run over you and kill you. And if they are an illegal alien, they'll get away with it. So there's DACA. There is a path to citizenship for all the people that are already here. What else are they talking about? They're probably on the bargaining table is probably an opportunity to get rid of chain migration. I would expect that migration should be in a position where where you have to prove that you actually know something in order to live here. You have to provide something besides a strong back and a will to do hard work. Make no mistake, that's a valuable skill in the United States. But there's got to be more. An immigration system worthy of the name is an immigration system that brings the best talent the world has to offer to your country in return for citizenship, in return for actually doing something good for the nation. That's what a real immigration plan does. We don't have that. What we have is we have a wholesale importation of the poorest of the poor, of the Americans, of the Central America and Mexicans, the nation of Mexico's workforce. And it's put huge holes in the entry-level employment programs of the United States for United States citizens. President Trump is going to get the wall, but he's going to have to give up something. Is he going to give up your favorite part of an immigration plan? Once again, I've told you, I've got an immigration plan where nobody has to give up anything. It puts a border wall up. It covers the bases of employers hiring illegal workers. It gives people, if they want to, a way to become a United States citizen. It stops the coyote trade and the human trafficking trade. It's something that can be put in place 180 days from now. And it would work. And it will work if it ever gets tried. If you want to hear about it, stick around. I'll tell you more. But meantime, what are you going to expect? This is the Wells Report.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you.
Yeah, but all right, man. Take it easy. Crazy stuff going on today, man. You know, I get the feel of Steve Bannon trying to sell some books, man.
Say what?
I get the feeling Steve Bannon trying to sell some books.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It could be. Whew.
All right, man, we got 30 seconds.
30 dang secondos.
People from the NRB just called, trying to see if we want to get a booth.
Ooh,
So
the NRB.
the National Religious Broadcasters.
Oh, the NRBA.
Yeah,
God, I'd love to go there. I want to do that. How much does it cost, I wonder?
I don't know. I'm about to call Fred and see if it's okay if I give the guy his number.
Give whose?
The guy that called about the NRB.
Give
Here we go, man.
Eight four four 927-6691 will get you through. Come and join us. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network. I was wondering when the Customs Enforcement Director, Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director, was going to stand up and say, hey, you know what? I'm a law enforcement officer, and there's some law enforcement I need to do. Thomas Homan said that California had better hold on tight after its liberal Democrat governor allowed a sanctuary state law to take effect this week. Neil Cavuto said that Governor Jerry Brown claimed the law will protect illegal immigrants living quietly in the shadows of society from law enforcement intent on yanking them out of there. Homan said that I think this is terrible. He added that Brown's actions put politics in front of public safety, puts politics in front of reality, puts politics in front of everything, including the safety of the females in your family. We talked about the signs yesterday underneath the signs like Malibu city limits, official sanctuary city. They've got one for welcome to California, official sanctuary state. Yeah. Very, very funny. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Thomas Homan doesn't think they're too funny. He also said that rank and file police officers are opposed to the new measure, and that the Brown administration did not consult them before approving that law. If Governor Brown thinks he's protecting the community, he's doing quite the opposite, Homan said. Brown is knowingly putting law enforcement at risk. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. There is no sanctuary from law enforcement, says the director of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director, Thomas Homan. There is no sanctuary from law enforcement. California better hold on tight. They're about to see a lot more deportation officers. If politicians do not protect their communities, then ICE will. Pun notwithstanding the fact that Immigration and Customs Enforcement stands for ICE. That kind of statement isn't really cool. Homan said that illegal alien smuggling organizations will use the California law as a selling point. Brown has bit off more than he can chew. Absolutely true. Homan said Governor Brown, and other sanctuary jurisdiction leaders may have violated 8 U.S. Code 1324 relating to harboring certain aliens. He said he hopes the Justice Department will look into whether or not officials can be criminally charged under the statute. According to the text of the federal law cited by Homan, any person knowingly or knowing the fact that an alien has come up, the United States is in violation of law. So here we go. At least somebody in the United States government, and yes, in the Trump administration, somebody saying, hey, maybe we'll have to arrest Jerry Brown, the governor of California. It could not happen soon enough. This is the Wells Report.
All right, man. So you didn't tell him to put you on the talk stream live? Hey, man, I'll be back in just a minute. All right, man. We got 2 minutes and 2.5.
$15.04, they say.
I've got a minute and a half, man.
1 minute and one half.
So you didn't. So the folks just put you on the talk stream list, like without you contact them.
No, I contacted them.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So that's 88, 89. I'm down to 89 now.
Oh, it changed already?
Yeah, it changes all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Let's see here.
All right, we're back in 10 seconds.
Okie doke. North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for joining us at 844-927-6691. I am John David Wells. You know, there are a lot of different ways of doing things. There is the United States way, and then there is the way that a lot of other Western republics and democracies do their business. One of the interesting things about the United States is that in the history of this country, you can find no totalitarian government. In the history of this nation, you do not see an all-powerful ruler operating in either a benevolent or a malevolent way. You don't see a populace that has been savagely pacified or shall we say willfully oppressed to the point where people are afraid to do as they choose for fear of losing their lives from this over-oppressive tyrannical government. In fact, the United States of America is built with the individual in mind, with individual rights at the cornerstone of the entire government, the Bill of Rights. That is not the way it is in other parts of the world. In some parts of the world, there are royal families that lord over their countries in an absolute fashion, specifically the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The royal family does whatever it chooses, to whomever it chooses to do it to, at a time of their choosing that can be as capricious as a desert dust devil. There are places where the church runs the show. Iran, Muslim theocracies where God is on the side of the government and no one else. These totalitarian societies specialize in the breaking and destruction of people that are pursuing freedom. It's one of the reasons we don't live in this country. Well, the interesting thing about that is because we have never lived under those rules, we don't have certain things that we deal with based on something that would be otherwise compared with reality. Let me explain what I mean. A Texas imam, that is a man who runs a Muslim mosque, has been called to account after issuing a video statement last month in which he said it was the duty of Muslims to kill Jews because of President Trump's decision to move the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Imam Raed Saleh Al-Ruzan, the founder of an Islamic Institute in Houston, said, quote, "Judgment Day will not come until Muslims fight the Jews there in Palestine." In a December 8th sermon titled Our Duties Towards Al-Quds, Jerusalem. Quote, "The Muslims will kill the Jews, and the Jews will hide behind the stones and the trees, and the stones and the trees will say, O Muslim, O servant of Allah, there is a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill him. This is the promise of Allah," the Imam said in a video posted and translated in Houston, Texas. He added, quote, "Muslims will have victory. Jews knows these facts, brothers and sisters, but they are trying to delay it because they don't want for us to be religious," unquote. Al-Ruzan issued two statements following an inflammatory video, the second of which was an apology without any qualification. Initially, the Texas imam said, in light of his being opposed to all forms of terrorism, he was mortified that an impassioned sermon I gave in light of President Trump's Jerusalem declaration is being seen as a call for the very things I despise. Well, Mr. Imam, holy man of Houston, what you're describing is duplicity. I only answer your question because you seem to be honestly shocked that in a sermon where you said for Muslims to go and kill Jews, that the very trees and rocks would be against the Jews and would call, O servant of Allah, to come and kill Jews behind these trees and rocks speaking to you. That's very straightforward. That's very, very easy to understand. It doesn't require any kind of educational translation. You are preaching genocide. And you're not the only ones. In a second statement, Al-Ruzan explained Islamic scholars and Muslim leaders helped him understand how his sermon can be seen as a call for violence against Jews. I'm sorry, sir. Once again, this is gobbledygooky and claptrap. With all due respect, sir, you know exactly what these words mean. And you know exactly what true believers would do with the words you speak. Don't stand there and be stunned that people would say, I don't know, maybe I should go kill that Jew because you said go kill that Jew. See, this is the epic blindness of corrosive, ill-begotten, tyrannical, totalitarian, theocratical bigotry. This is theocratic bigotry and nothing more. It is so much a part of Muslim life, so much a part of it, that it can be spoken by a guy who speaks about Islam for a living. And even he can be blinded by the fact that he just called for people to go out and slaughter Israel's children. So did this guy who lives in Houston, Texas, get into trouble? No. Why? Well, because it's not against the law to spew hate speech. Apparently, it's okay to go ahead and say, we can build this monument to anti-Jewish bigotry. And we can talk about anti-Jewish bigotry all we wish. And that is going to be that. And not be charged with hate crime. But woe be unto those who decide to say, oh, I don't know, maybe something anti-Muslim, especially in a different country. Beatrix von Storch is a leading figure in the Alternative for Germany party. She is one of the first hit by new hate speech laws on social media. Critics say the legislation opens up the way for censorship by internet companies. A top lawmaker from the anti-immigration Alternative for Germany party was blocked from Twitter and Facebook after slamming the Cologne police for sending a New Year's tweet in Arabic. The incident called an AFD to lash out further and criticize censorship as a controversial new journal social media law known as NetzDG went into effect. This in a bid to clamp down on online hate speech. The Cologne police tweeted New Year's greetings and linked to information on celebrating safely in a series of messages in German and other language, including Arabic. Cologne was the scene 2 years ago of mass sexual assaults on New Year's Eve, which most of the suspects were described as young men of North African and Arab origin. Beatrix von Storch said, "What the hell is happening in our country? Why is an official police site tweeting in Arabic? Do you think it's to appease the barbaric, gang-raping hordes of Muslim men?" The next thing that happened was the tweet was deleted after Twitter froze von Storch's account, then informed her that she had violated hate speech rules. Her account was shut down for 12 hours. The Cologne police said on Monday that they had filed a criminal complaint against von Storch for hate speech. The lawmaker then upped the ante, writing a sarcastic post once her account was reopened. She announced that her Facebook account had been censored due to hate speech complaints. Facebook also censored me. This is the end of the constitutional state, she wrote. She may be correct. Why haven't people taken to the streets in Cologne, Germany, and elsewhere? Well, because They're waiting to see whether or not the government's going to be powerful enough to destroy Ms. von Storch. One of the horrible things about a corrupt government or a government that has decided to go down the road of politics supplanting law is the horrible notion that when it comes right down to it, the political elite will do with everyone in the country as they see fit. Which is exactly what they do. It's called tyranny, oppression, despotism. German police filed a complaint against Beatrix von Storch, deputy leader of the Alternative for Germany's parliamentary faction. And she's got a good point. What is an official police URL site tweeting in Arabic for? You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. There's another side of this story, and we'll share it next on the Wells Report.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you. Whew. Uh-oh.
What's that?
Fire broken out. Shoot, I don't have the news. I need to do that.
Oh, here, I got you.
What do you got?
I can put the news to you
How?
through this board. Hang on one second.
Should be a time of celebration, not obligation.
Can you
That's
hear
why
it?
we think annual
Yeah.
fees are ridiculous. And now, just for giving us a try, we're going to give new card members a 1-year anniversary gift
Damn, never mind. It's not even the news right now. Sorry.
No.
I thought for some reason I was thinking it was the top of the hour. I don't know why.
It was one of those things where you just sort of have to you just got to go with the flow.
Yeah, I just responded. You said news, and I thought I can pipe it to it.
Yeah.
Well, we got CNN and Fox both up, and they're not showing nothing yet.
Okay.
There's nobody that meets with White House officials.
Yes. We got to work that out too.
Back in 30 seconds.
Ready? Ready?
All right, here we go in 10.
Thank you. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Currently, there is a story that there may be a fire at the Clinton home in Chappaqua, New York. We're checking on that even as we speak. I'll have more details on that coming up in just a couple of moments here on the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network. So, a tale of two famous people and two famous countries. In the United States, a Muslim imam gives a speech where he repeatedly calls for Muslims to kill the Jews. But somebody's going to have to tell me what's going on in Germany, because in Germany, there is a politician who has been arrested. She's under fire for sending a tweet that police say flouted laws against incitement to hate. German police filed the complaint against Beatrix von Storch, deputy leader of the Alternative for Germany's parliamentary faction, over a tweet she sent on New Year's Eve. What the hell is going on in this country? Why is an official police site tweeting in Arabic? Did you mean to placate the barbaric Muslim grand raping hordes of men? Von Storch's tweet, in response to a tweet from Cologne police that was in several languages, including Arabic, referenced the 2015 New Year's Eve celebrations in Cologne, which were marred by roving gangs of Muslim men performing mass sexual assaults against women. These assaults, by the way, were mostly by Muslim migrant men. Cologne police told AFP its complaint alleges the tweet by the minister, the member of parliament, flouted laws against incitement to hate. Specifically, prosecutors in the Western city said they had received hundreds of complaints over the lawmaker's comment. Prosecutors in the Western city said that they had received hundreds of complaints over the lawmaker's comment. Sure, they did. Von Storch's account was also blocked by Twitter for 12 hours following her post. The tweet has since been removed. She posted the same comment on Facebook, which then took it down as well, citing incitement to hate. Twitter and Facebook's tough stance came as an online hate speech law went into effect in Germany January 1st. Social media companies that failed to remove inflammatory illegal comments could face up to 50 million euro. That's $60 million. So in America, a guy can talk about genocide. In Germany, all a woman needs to do is suffering from humiliating attacks on the part of by people who should not necessarily be living where they're living and exposing the women that she knows to those horrific attacks. My point in all of this is free speech is something that has to be protected. In the United States, we don't have hate speech laws. In Germany, they do. One of the reasons that I believe that there is hate speech in Germany is because of those laws, not in spite of them, but because of them. There are two ways of looking at things. The things that we're looking at are free speech ideas. I am very, very concerned, and many of us have been concerned for a long time, that our nation was headed to the place where Germany is, where you cannot put down some ethnic group. Not that they don't put themselves down, not that those genetic groups don't talk about inflammatory racist things between them, but if you're white, in other words, those laws apply for you. If you're not white, then get out of the way. We have white people to arrest for bigotry. Sure. You're listening to the Wells Report.
All right, man. Just like the privilege is like that too. You know, you don't hear about them talking about any other color privilege. Major security flaw may exist with Intel CPUs.
Just a chillin'. Okay, then.
righty, we got 30 seconds.
New viewers? Question mark? Who? Who? Who?
All right, man, back in 10 seconds.
Okay. You are listening to the Wells Report. 844-927-6691. John David Wells welcoming you to this high-quality radio broadcast product. What we do is we give you the news. We give you the facts behind the news. I comment on the facts, and then we debate whether or not my commentary has any merit. And that, of course, is that's the secret sauce. That's what we do. How do you get in touch with me to tell me that you think I may be foolish? Well, you can call 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. You can do that. And what will end up happening, of course, is that we will answer your telephone. Okay? We've been talking about some differences in free speech, where an imam from Houston, Texas can preach genocide against Jews. But when a female member of parliament in Germany brings up the fact that a German state police agency is tweeting out in Arabic, they tweeted out in a bunch of other languages too. But when they tweeted out in Arabic and she questioned that, why is that the case? And this, by the way, happened in Cologne, where 2 years ago, about 100 women were manhandled approaching rape in the streets on New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. There was absolutely perfectly valid outrage there. But she was charged with hate speech because you cannot speak about things along that line without offending someone, I suppose. And in Germany, I suppose it's now definitely illegal to offend someone. And that is the concern that I have for the United States. We had been practicing the road to that very ridiculous fate ourselves. We called it political correctness. Political correctness, of course, is the opposite of free speech. It is incredibly difficult to listen to somebody say something horrifically bigoted or anti-American, not just to say it, but to actually demonstrate a pure, cynical contempt for the greatest nation on earth. It's hard for those of us who truly love our country to be willing to countenance that, but at times we have to. But on the other hand, the alternative is not worth discussing, or the alternative is not worth having. Just because you're not calling a shovel doesn't mean that it is something other than a shovel. And I don't have any real appreciation for people who want to indeed make our nation less willing to step on other people's toes. Because I've found that if you're in the majority, like I am, most of the people of the United States are white, 63% in fact. Most of the people of the United States are Christians. I am both of those. If you're white and you're a Christian, then you are obviously the problem, and you are constantly under snippy, capricious, totally without merit attack. You are called a bigot. You are called a xenophobe. You are called a homophobe. You're called a deplorable. You're this, you're that, the other thing. And in recent times, people can be shouted down by people that are not bound to the rules of ethics or logic or fact or anything. The feeding frenzy of baseless speech, of political speech, has gladly overwhelmed logic and reason, critical thinking, and the willingness to tell the truth. And so people don't tell the truth nearly as often as they used to. And in that case, those cases, if you will, it becomes more difficult virtually every day to get someone to really nail themselves down to the facts. And in some cases, and this is something that I found on my show, I can absolutely make a statement and come up with the facts. And people can say that's not true, or they can say that those facts are not correct when I know them to be, but they can just be discounted. Because it seems as though the argument is more important than the reasoned solving of difficulty. It's more important that we hate each other than to know exactly why. Or maybe more likely, it's more important that we hate each other than to be able to actually sit down and bridge our differences with reason, logic, knowledge, and a willingness to accept that you might be wrong. I remember starting out my talk radio career and having somebody question something that I had been working the whole day on trying to find out about. And I would get the topics, and I would get get all the facts, and I'd be able to tell people where they could find the facts and so on. And then people would call me on the telephone and tell me I was full of crap anyway. And I'd get very annoyed. The most recent time was when I started explaining that the Nazi Party was a leftist organization, not a alternate right organization, not at all. The leftist, bigoted institution based on socialism. For some reason, people got that completely wrong. Well, I know exactly what the reason was. Progressive leftists running from their past. Of course, if I had a past like that, I'd run from it too. Look, the simple case is this. The people of the United States succeed because not only do we have a country that is, for all intents and purposes, a meritocracy, where people who do good things are very successful, that gets rid of an awful lot of this gobbledygooky and garbage. But in the United States, we currently reward good thinking. When it comes to logic and when it comes to the kinds of critical thinking exercises you put yourself through on a daily basis just to make sense out of all of this, when it comes right down to it, this is the place to go. This is the place to come. But either if you are a consumer of this, then not only do you have to realize when somebody is essentially lying to you, but you also have to determine what they're lying about and exactly what the nature of the lie is. And you have to understand all that. Because as you parse through the facts, like I do for a living, there are people that will try to distract your explanation or distract your understanding based on these small little things that they'll throw in. Just trying to distract you from figuring out what you're trying to get across. Because they don't want you to speak. Well, just because these people don't want me to speak does not mean that I'm going to stop. Quite the other hand, quite the opposite way, actually. Because I believe that if you put garbage into your mind, garbage will come out. If you want garbage, there are lots of places to go on the talk radio spectrum. We talk about the news here. And sometimes the news can be biased left. And sometimes the news is biased right. But regardless of that bias, left or right, you and the stewardship of the nation in which you live demands that you look beyond the obvious, the easy, the simple. The continual mouthed bromides of rationalization. You have to look through all of that. Through the layer of dirt in the place where you keep your logic, and you have to say, this is what's going on here. Because from there, that clarity is what good decision-making is all about. It is not what bad decision-making is all about. And we've seen some bad decision-making. I'm not necessarily sure. I told people when we got through the 2016 election, an election that almost killed me. I said, well, congratulations on a good old-fashioned, out-of-control election for president. And while I was very sure that we picked the right president, I was very, very sure. And I turned out to be absolutely correct. Not the actual groups of people, but I was very, very sure that there would be many people in the government of the United States that would not be happy with the fact that Donald Trump had become the 45th president of this land. we found out that upper FBI management were at least investigating the possibilities of some form of, quote, insurance policy to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office. Fortunately, it did not work. That being said, it may work another time. Spend some time talking with millennials. The ones that will talk to you will listen as well as speak. But the ones who are living their lives with a skull full of glass, heated to thousands of degrees and poured in without regard to what knowledge or wisdom or even experience it destroyed. Those are the people that you have to really worry about, because those are the ones that will not see the truth. They can't afford to see it. They can't believe in it, and they're afraid of it. And they do their dead level best to screw us up too. This is the Wells Report.
All right, sir. Having a good day.
Thank you. Mm.
All right, back in 1 minute.
One dang minute.
All right, here we go. 10 seconds.
Eight 844-927-6691 gets you through to the Wells Report. We're talking a little bit of free speech and the realities of free speech, some of which are outright painful. What we have seen in this country, we have seen the mainstream media practicing their constitutionally mandated, chartered work as a free press turned into a snide laughing stock. 63% of all news articles about President Trump are negative. Only percent are positive. There are stories that are not provable to be true, but are also not provably false either. And that gives you an opportunity to print something that's completely outrageous but cannot be refuted. And sometimes that takes the place of news. Some of it is calculated to have an effect on you as a reader. In some cases, the effect is to reinforce what you've already believed. A recent study has found that Facebook is the biggest gateway for fake news in the run-up to the 26th presidential election. The social media site was by far the top disseminator of fake news articles, putting it ahead of email, Google, Twitter, according to 3 political scientists. Their findings are based on actual web traffic data pulled from 2,525 Americans, all of whom consented to the study. We find that approximately 1 in 4 Americans visited a fake news website from October 7th through November 14th. Based on their sample size, the political scientists estimate 22% of the fake news visits they identified were funneled to America by Facebook. Email providers such as Yahoo or Gmail were responsible for over 6%. Meanwhile, Google and Twitter each may have spread less than 2%. The study, which the New York Times publicized yesterday, offers some actual hard data on how fake news is consumed. It also comes as Facebook itself is trying to fight misinformation over the platform. Third-party fact-checking websites have been seen as one of the ways to stop fake news from fooling readers. However, these efforts appear to be failing to reach the public. According to the study, when people consume fake news, they hardly ever read the corresponding fact check debunking the fake claims. I know why that is, because I've had to read those fact check things that supposedly debunk these fake claims. More than ever, what they end up being a restatement of the actual lie. This time under the color of caring journalism. You have to have the right story. You have to have the real deal. You have to be able to see it. You have to be able to hear about it. You have to be able to understand it. And you have to be able to base decisions that work on it. You simply have to demand better. I'm doing the best I can. I think you know that. You're listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of seconds. Wednesday afternoon, January 3rd, 2018. Back in a moment.
All right, sir. I'm going to take a break for 1 second, go grab me a drink, so I'll be right back.
Go do it. Do it. Do it now. Cotby,
All right, man. You got a minute and a half.
a minute and a half.
What were you saying? You talk about Hoda's last name.
Hoda Cotby.
Yeah, I forget how they forget how they pronounce it on the air. I don't even remember. They say it some funny way.
Cotby.
I can't even remember.
We simply need to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh. All right. How do we pronounce? How do you pronounce AOTB? Codby.
All right, man.
Hoda Codby.
Back in 10 seconds.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. Hi, my name is John David Wells. Thanks for joining us on the USA Radio Network. Telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Apparently, you say her name, Hoda Kotb. Hoda Kotb has replaced Matt Lauer. She is named the co-host of NBC's Today broadcast. Big promotion. But not as big as it should be, at least in a lot of people's points of view. And there is something here that is worthy of discussion, and I hope we can discuss it. It is my hope that what we end up with is we end up with some sort of understanding as to just exactly why Hoda Kotb, who has just gotten one of the biggest jobs in broadcasting, one of the plum positions of network television, arguably one of the, shall we say, just in round numbers, 6 best jobs in network TV. And yet, there's some stunning information regarding just exactly her apparent market worth based on the person she's replacing. Hoda Kotb is now the co-host of the Today Show. Way back when NBC was the first network, first radio network, the first television network. When all this stuff was coming down, the purveyors decided that there would be 3 television broadcasts. The people that started NBC, David Sarnoff and all of those guys, decided that there would be a show called Today that would start the day with the most recent news and talk about what today would mean. Following that would be Tonight. And then Tomorrow. The Today Show has been on for, boy, very, very close to a century. The Tonight Show has been on in various states. Jack Parr, the original host. No, I'm sorry. Steve Allen was the original host. Jack Parr filled in after that. Johnny Carson. And now it's Jimmy Fallon is the host of The Tonight Show. And Jimmy Fallon is very, very good, but he doesn't do the show the way I believe it should have been. The Tonight Show was always an interview show with newsmakers, celebrities, and the like. The Today Show was about today's news. What was going to happen today? And the Tomorrow Show was just about what, I mean, it was a perfect, what Tom Snyder did back in the 80s and the 70s and 80s was a perfect idea of what the future might hold for this nation tomorrow. What was going to happen tomorrow? Now, there were at one point or another mostly single host shows. But clearly, with a news show in the morning, you had to have somebody to do weather, and you had to have somebody to do news, and you had to have somebody to do interviews, and you had to have several different people. 3 or 4. The Tonight Show was a solo gig, so was the Tomorrow Show. 3 or 4, 5, 6, occasionally 7. But these were the biggest shows in network television. The Tomorrow Show is something that I hope that I can do someday. I'd like to convince the people of NBC to let me have a shot at doing that broadcast. But they don't know me from deep center field. But that's a show that I've always wanted. Hoda Kotb, on the other hand, is someone who is going to become, after all of the work that she's done, an overnight success, making $7 million per year as the host, the hostess, the co-host of the Today Show. As you know, she replaces Matt Lauer, who was fired last year for sexual misconduct. When it came to doing special projects, he had special times that he would do special projects, but most of the time, he's up very, very early in the morning, say 3 in the morning, out of the way at 9 o'clock in the morning, and heads on to do his job, just to do the rest of his day. Ms. Kotb will be showing up from 7 to 9 on the East Coast and then staying on until 11. So she'll be working a 4-hour on-air gig for all intents and purposes. And she's making $7 million a year. So when you start thinking about it, that's a lot of money per hour of broadcast per year. That's a lot of money. So what's the issue? The issue is Matt Lauer was making $25 million a year. Now, he was the lead on the show, so that's worth a little bit more. He was also someone who had an amazing career, been at NBC for decades. So that he would make that kind of money and Hoda Kotb would not, I get it. But $13 million less per year $18 million less per year when you start thinking about the extra time? Was there somebody that NBC hired a little sooner, maybe not quite as far back, or maybe as a contemporary of Hoda Kotb? Yes. And that, of course, was Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox News. Became the apple of someone's eye at NBC. And they brought Megyn Kelly for $20 million a year, $13 million more than Hoda Kotb. Megyn Kelly has not had the greatest time. A lot of the people that talk about media, very upset about Fox News to begin with, will be willing to take shots at Megyn Kelly for her Fox past. What I'm trying to figure out is this one of those cases where wage disparity between men and women need to be discussed? It needs to be discussed. Now, I'm not exactly sure about anybody else's life, but I can tell you a little bit about mine. My life in broadcasting, and basically I live the same life as these people do. I contact broadcasting entities around the country, and I find a place to work, and I go work there and make a deal as you show up. I haven't been overly focused on money. I've been focused on work. My priorities came in three different sizes. One, was it going to be fun to do? Two, was I going to be able to live properly on the money that was being offered? Three, was there some kind of security that could go with it? There were times when I went and interviewed that I didn't get an offer. There were times when I went and interviewed that I did get offers that I turned down. But this is the give and take of broadcast negotiations. Because I haven't been overly focused. I have been overly focused on money. I've had a pretty good career from a standpoint of ratings. There have been guys that focused more on money and not as much on ratings that didn't have as nearly as successful a career as I've had, but made a lot more money than I did. Lots more. So when you start talking about Hoda Kotb versus Matt Lauer, he's a hard negotiator. He is going to be able to convince somebody that he's worth, okay, in this case, $25 million. Does Hoda Kotb get in there and say, okay, this is what I've done, and this is what I've done, and this is what I've done, and this is what I'll be willing to work for? Or does she just say, gosh, I'm just lucky to be here? I'm just lucky to be here can cost you upwards of $18 million. Coming from a position of no real strength, which is where Hoda Kotb is. She wasn't outside the building. She wasn't coveted by the people inside the building. She wouldn't necessarily make a whole lot of money. See, I was willing to know. I mean, I was willing to go, where the radio road took me. I traveled the nation doing radio because that's part of the business. But should Hoda Kotb make a little bit more money than this? Well, I don't know. There is no real scale for network television host. Our telephone number, 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. Jared in Vegas, thanks for joining us, my friend. Welcome to the Wells Report.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I just want to know your thoughts on the Steve Bannon thing. I think they're kind of both in the wrong right now, and it's just causing a big kerfuffle all over the place.
Well, you've got to understand a couple of things about Steve Bannon, and I have been looking at that story. We're trying to figure out where it's going to go. Tell you what I'm going to do, Jared. I'm going to put you on hold here, and I'm going to bring you back after the bottom of or after this break. I want you to stay right where you are, and we'll talk a little bit about Steve Bannon. Because we looked at that story today, and it came out of nowhere. And it came out of nowhere, and it was a little bit sketchy for us. So we decided what we'd do is we'd give it another day. But I can bring it up, and we can talk a little bit about it. Jared from Las Vegas is joining us. He has been kind enough to ask us a little bit about Steve Bannon. We're going to talk a little bit about that. In case you don't know what's going on, Steve Bannon came up with some very explosive statements regarding that meeting with the Russians by Donald Trump Jr. and other members of the Trump campaign, and called it treason. What was he talking about? We'll unwrap that next on the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Sounding good. All right, he's holding on.
All right. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike. Mike-O-Matic. Mikey-doo-dah.
Yes,
Mike.
sir.
Oh, hi there. Let's try to figure out what station he's listening to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I asked him. He said he couldn't tell or something.
Well, have him look at the dial on his phone and tell me where, because I think, I don't know where we are here, but I need to find out what radio station that is in Las Vegas.
All right. Thank
Okay.
Yeah, he says he can't tell. It says his screen's broken.
But he's in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So he's listening on his phone?
No, he said he's listening on the radio, but the screen on his display is broken or something. Probably just scanned to it.
Right.
I bet it's the same station that the Mike guy listens to.
Affiliate map. Sports USA.
All right, here we go, man.
Okay. This is the Wells Report. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. We're trying to figure out what radio station Jared is listening to us on in Las Vegas, Nevada. Could be 790. Could be 790 Talk Now, the talk that rocks in Las Vegas. Jared in Vegas, does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah. Yes, it does sound familiar.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about Steve Bannon. In case people don't know, former White House chief strategist Bannon called the 2016 Trump Tower meeting between the Trump campaign and a Russian lawyer purportedly offering damaging information about Hillary Clinton treasonous. In the book, Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House by Michael Wolff, there were hundreds of interviews, including those with Donald Trump and his inner circle. According to the Guardian newspaper in London, Bannon addressed the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and then campaign chairman Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, and Russian operatives that was arranged when Trump Jr. agreed to meet a Russian government attorney after receiving an email offering him very high-level and sensitive information that would incriminate Hillary Clinton. 3 senior guys in the campaign thought it would be a good idea to meet with a foreign government inside Trump Tower in the conference room of the 25th floor with no lawyers. They didn't have any lawyers, Bannon continued, according to The Guardian. Even if you thought it was not treasonous or unpatriotic or bad stuff, and I happen to think it's all of that, you should have called the FBI immediately. Bannon reportedly told Wolff they're going to crack Don Jr. like an egg on national television. Well, okay. I'm hearing all of that, but as far as I know,
Yeah.
none of it came to actual fruition, Jared. Now, for his,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, it seems like, I mean, I don't think either of them are completely clear of innocence. It seems like Bannon has fallen into what a lot of the people who leave the Trump administration is, and that is cashing out on being part of the administration. You know, you have several other ones on book deals, things of that sort. If you want a book deal, you know, you got to come with some juicy information, and it seems like he kind of threw the president under the bus on this one. But at the same time, I think, you know, like I'm a follower of Breitbart News and a lot of the, right-wing media, and it seems like, you know, the president, too, is not being completely honest up front. You know, like he ran on ending DACA and deporting all illegal aliens. He ran on defunding Planned Parenthood. And, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, I'm a policy guy. Like, I'm not a cult of personality. Just with anything the president says, I nod. So him and Bannon fighting, I almost call it a draw. I mean, both of them, I think, are guilty.
Well, we only have fragments. I mean, you know, this falls under the this falls under the gathering of intelligence, Jared. And the way we go about the Wells Report, and by the way, thanks very much for listening. I sure appreciate it, my friend. The way we go about this is we look at it like it's an intelligence project every day. And you don't get all the pieces. You never do. We're not going to get all the pieces having to do with Bannon and Trump. No matter how many pieces we get, we'll never get as many as necessary to be able to come up with what you would consider to be the lead pipe cinch truth. So you have to look at it based on some of the ideology of what was going on. Remember, this was happening very, very early on. This was before the president was elected. And there were an awful lot of things going on in campaigns in the breakneck pace of actual unfolding combat with quotation marks, of course. Because basically what you're doing is you're running these two campaigns and you're trying to make whatever hay you can that particular day. When somebody says that they've got something spectacularly damaging on your opponent, you go and meet with them. That's what you do. Now, there were an awful lot of opportunities for people to second guess what the Trump administration was doing, but you also have to remember that the Trump administration or the Trump campaign, the Trump transition, you have to understand that those people were scaring the living hell out of the political elite in the United States. The political elite, they were panicking left and right because they thought, my God, Donald Trump might actually win this election. And so what they ended up doing was they ended up trying to damage Donald Trump in any way they could. Now, there was an awful lot of pressure, awful lot of stress. I would say at this particular moment that Steve Bannon would not say these things today as much as he would say these things, say, for example, in the heat of the moment, way back when things weren't going along to his particular satisfaction in the campaign, which was also the case. So once again, you got to know exactly what's happening here, and you don't really know the players without the scorecards, and the scorecards aren't anywhere close to being published yet. So really all you can do is just say, look at this and say, okay, more grist for the mill. We'll keep our eyes on it.
Yeah, that's weird, man. I thought maybe the excerpts were coming from a book that he was doing, but it's
Yeah.
that book you just said, Fire and Fury thing.
Yeah.
And the book was based on hundreds of interviews. I guess that guy had
Right.
Yeah. But it's weird that he would say that because it seems like he's always been a real big supporter, and it seems like this is kind of negative or not supporting. I don't know. It's very strange. Very strange.
Yep.
I just wonder why he would say that. Like I initially thought he would say it to sell his own book, but I guess not. It sounds like there's a bunch of wild stuff coming out of this book, though, or a bunch of wild things that people said.
Yeah. Well,
But the media goes crazy over this stuff.
yep. Yeah, that's why we didn't talk about it, because it wasn't really fleshed out that well.
Yeah, definitely. Nowadays, if the media hears anything that's hitting Donald Trump, they want it. They want it right then.
Yep, they do.
Like they're just reading from this thing already.
Well, I mean, they're looking for, again, the feverish delusions. That's what they're looking for.
They're gonna try to spin it like
Sure.
Donald Trump's own people are even turning on him now.
Well, sure. That's what you do.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I guess, like they say, I've always heard that whatever administration is in power or like has the majority right now, like the other party will kind of be more popular in the media or more heavy in the media during that time.
Right.
Like that's why there's so much. I guess maybe that's why conservative media is not like as big as it was under Obama. Maybe.
What kind of media?
I mean, I guess that's why maybe conservative and right wing stuff is not as
Well, a lot of the
and
people got chased out of the business.
yeah,
You
and it's not as widespread as it was under Obama because it was I don't know. It just seems like there was more stuff out there.
Right.
Now it seems a bunch of left wing stuff. All right, we got back in 20 seconds.
Cool. 844-927-6691. You're listening to the Wells Report. Thanks very much for doing so. I appreciate it. I do. Finishing up that story with Bannon saying that that the Trump Tower meeting in 2016 was treasonous. Remember, that's from a book that has been written not by Steve Bannon, but was based on interviews with Steve Bannon. It was a retrospective on the blast furnace that was a first-timer's attempt to run for the presidency of the United States. And there were huge mistakes made, and there was a great deal of perpetual stress. And yeah, that makes for juicy quotes, mainly by overtired people that needed to sleep instead of talking in front of some microphone somewhere. But all that being said, well, that's what has happened. Now, President Trump has been moving through this very, very well. He's been talking with, and his lawyers have been talking with, and his lawyers and he are both very sanguine and extremely optimistic about what's going on with the Mueller investigation. President Donald Trump's legal team held talks with members of the special counsel Robert Mueller's team a few days before Christmas. In the discussion, Trump lawyers were hoping to get a better sense of the next steps in the Mueller inquiry and how much longer this cloud of investigation will hang over the president. The precise details of what was discussed would not be learned, but the president's lawyers have not dampened their optimism that the Russia investigation will come to an end soon and there's no danger to the president. I know we collectively, the lawyers, are looking forward to an expeditious wrapping up of this matter, said Jay Sekulow, a lawyer for the president, telling the Wall Street Journal a few days after the discussion with Mueller's team. So there's that. This, by the way, this meeting, as you know, post-dates the interview that Steve Bannon is quoted as saying that the meeting was treasonous. So the Bannon quote is basically it's salacious, all right, but it's also past tense. President Donald Trump, for his part, regarding his former top strategist, Steve Bannon, today said that he's kind of lost his mind after leaving the White House. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Now he's on his own. Steve is learning that winning isn't as easy as I make it look. And you know what? That is not something that may sound a bit either presumptuous or arrogant or both on the part of Donald Trump. But he does make things look easy. And people do misunderstand that, here's how I got it. I remember watching Donald Trump speak the first time. And it was this rambling fusillade of factoid and ideology mixed with personal knowledge and arrogance and brass and all this stuff, right? And he went from one thing to another, to another, to another. And I'm going, this speech is arguably one of the most disconcerted mishmashes that I've ever heard. And then I guess it was like 3 or 4 days later, and he was speaking again. And I noticed that he talked about everything that he talked about in the first speech, almost word for word, including what appeared to be these very awkward transitions from one subject to another. And he talked about them almost identically. The speeches were almost identical. And I went, wait a minute. He's doing this on purpose. He's speaking this way on purpose. And then I saw him in a free fall, just an absolutely freewheeling press conference, going from one reporter to another, to another, to another, talking about anything. There was no agenda. They could ask him any questions. He made his speech, and then he turned it into a press conference after the speech, and that was some of the most electrifying political interactions that I have ever seen between the press and the president. I mean, it was awe-inspiring. And that's when I realized there's a lot more to Donald Trump than people want to give him credit for. Those of us who live life in the public, we live life in public, realize after a while that there's only so much There's so much protection of yourself that you can do. People will come up with the weirdest stuff about you. And what you have to do is you kind of have to sort of leave it alone, you know? The only things that I really argue about are people inside the industry I've worked with who say, for example, for whatever reason, want to besmirch my professional reputation. And they hear from me pretty quickly. But not on things that I screwed up, only on things I didn't screw up. If I did something professionally that I screwed up, I said, well, you know, that's the way that goes. If somebody asked me about it, yeah, I ham-fisted that one badly. Yeah, I really did. But if, say, for example, I handled something exceptionally well, and that does happen, and somebody says, well, he was a, you know, this or that during that particular time, I'll call them on the telephone and say, you need to retract that immediately, or I will extract a retraction, and you don't want that. And after the bluster of, oh, yeah, you know, bring it on, I usually have one of my lawyer friends call him on the telephone and explain it to him. Mark, Steve, some of those guys, Gene, bad buds, let me tell you. But then again, I only argue when I'm going to win. Because you have to leave the rest of it alone. It has to float out there. And if it's not doing damage to you, you just let it float out there. And you hope for the best. I don't know whether the president is correct that Steve Bannon lost his mind. I know that that's probably a pretty good statement for Trump to make, but it's not as good as, you know, Steve Bannon is realizing that this is not as easy as he makes it look. I think that's the real important piece of this. I think Steve Bannon is extremely angry that he got dealt out of the game. And I think he's very upset about the fact that he made some very serious wrong calls. It cost him his job. Steve Bannon is an incredibly talented guy. Well, like I've always said, you run and run and run to get the presidency. And when you win the election, the presidency gets you. The trick to being the president of the United States is being able to protect as many of the things that you said in ignorance once you've been clued in. There is a reason why there's not a wall on the southern border. Now, will President Trump be able to blow all that up and by sheer force of will and personality and support from the American people actually get a wall built like he promised he would? Most likely. Will there be thousands upon millions upon thousands upon hundreds of thousands upon millions of people that go down to the border to check to see if every quarter mile is covered by a fence? No. A lot of that you'll just have to take on faith. You'll be able to figure out whether or not the Border Patrol has actually been expanded to 2 times its size and whether or not there's actually a real Border Patrol patrolling the border and enough infrastructure to keep people from bringing the world's contraband to the United States. I have been there. I have seen it for myself. You want that border closed forthwith. Man, the Texas soldier during Operation Strong Safety, I was there. And the traffic on the border was unbelievable. And what we did down there was truly amazing. And you have not heard the story. And until I'm cleared, you're not going to hear the story from me. All I can tell you is that you want American soldiers on that border right now. And you want that as quickly as you possibly can, and you want it to stay as long as it possibly can stay. And you want those people doing that work. Because what we did down there is some of the most amazing, some of the most patriotic amazingly brilliant military work ever done in the United States. It was just genius. I just shook my head at how much incredible talent and how much brain power went into what was going on down there. People say, well, John David, what do you think about the American military? I go, you have no idea who you're dealing with. No idea who you're dealing with. It's truly amazing. Someday I'll be able to tell that story. But the president is correct. He's got to close that border. He's got to do it quickly. The quicker, the better. We've got to get our immigration system under control, not necessarily because of the border, but because of the politics of trying to change the nation into something that will elect more Democrats. That cynical abuse of this nation is a cynical abuse of this nation. And no matter how many times I sit behind this microphone and assure you that I'm nonpartisan, to tell you that voting for another Democrat is the worst thing you could possibly do sure makes me sound partisan, doesn't it? Look, it's not because there aren't good ideas coming out of the Democrat Party. It's because the Democrat Party has been destroyed by leftist, elitist progressives bent on the destruction of our nation. That's who's running the show in the Democrat Party. Communists and socialists. Hiding under the label progressive. And they are hiding. They got their man elected in 2016. And we have yet to actually get our arms around the amount of damage done to the country by that group of people. They found that the country was much more resilient than they thought it was going to be. They thought that they had pretty much figured this out, that they were going to be able to kick the nation into a very harsh state of anarchy, witness the very early and very quickly put down moves of Black Lives Matter. They were hoping for a Black Lives Spring, mirroring the Arab Spring that went around the Middle East. It did not happen because Americans won't do that kind of thing because we love this nation. But there were an awful lot of people like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders runs as a socialist, trying to gin up the kind of hatred against the existing government that existed back in the Bolshevik days with the Russian royal family. Was the Russian royal family worse than any other royal family of Europe? No. No, they weren't. Were they these arch menaces that were destroying the Russian people? Certainly not like Stalin was. But the people of Russia didn't know any better. And these progressives, these survivors of these doomed expeditions, assure each other that the next time we try it, we'll get it right next time. Venezuela was the last time. A country in disarray, unable to feed its people. And they wanted that for the United States of America. And you say, my gosh, that's far-flung, John David. What the hell are you talking about? Well, let me explain something to you. The president of the United States between 2008 and 2016 was Barack Obama. He wanted the government to handle your health care. Is there another government agency that handles another portion of the American population's health care? Yes. What is it? Well, the VA medical system. They've got hospitals and doctors and nurses. They do surgeries. They do all kinds of things. They take care of the veterans of the United States military. Well, so how's that working? Well, let's put it this way. In the last 10 years, they killed 307,000 United States veterans. 307,000. That's 5 times more people killed in the Vietnam War. And these were the people that were trying to save these people's lives as a government military medical organization. And that's what President Obama wanted for all of us. Was that story ever told by your mainstream media? Oh, no. No, because that looks too much like communist socialism. Well, that's where they wanted to go. You'll learn. No, I'm not some jingoistic crazy man, right-wing nutcase. I'm an American. I read. And what I read and what I study and what I learn, I share with you. If you think I'm wrong, get on the phone. 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. This is the Wells Report.
All right, man, you got 3 minutes. Or almost 4.
How's that?
Say what?
How was that?
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Hang on. Trying to grab this clip real quick. Oh, man. Okay.
Okay, so the point is, this is what they.
All right, man, we're back in a minute and 10.
A minute and 10. John Garina's listening. John Garina. John Garina's listening. John Garina. John Garina. John Garina is listening. So the 13 watching around the world on YouTube, are you having fun with the show? Do you like it? Is it goodish? Are you happy? Please let me know. Yeah, one of our guys, one of our friends just said, your microphone is live during the breaks. Yeah, it's live during the breaks. And I'm not exactly
All right, we're back in 10.
You're listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Yesterday, we reported on CNN's ridiculous blast into the, into the pot-laden 70s with their ridiculous idea that they somehow wanted to put the J, as in joint, into journalism. They had a marijuana-themed New Year's Eve segment, and it was embarrassing. You know, from time to time, there are a lot of people that come up with these fantastic, wacky radio promotions. You know what they do is they say, I know what we'll do. We'll take somebody like Wells, and we'll put him on the air for 4 hours, and what he'll do is he'll take one drink every 15 minutes. One drink every 15 minutes, and we'll listen and watch him deteriorate into blather. I have never done that, insofar as that I wouldn't waste your time. Why in heaven's name would you want to listen to me get drunk? I mean, there'd be some spectacular moments, don't get me wrong. When my mind is unfettered with discipline, strange things happen. Ask any of my friends. Anyway, but that being said, CNN decided to have some guy huffing on a bong. The reporter holding joints the wrong way, by the way. Anyway, she's holding these joints, but she's not inhaling. All that being said, there are a lot of people that are not real happy about it. CNN is trying to trademark the debauchery as its brand for the New Year's Eve coverage. I mean that quite seriously. This is according to Media Research Center President Brent Bozell. He explained that since they had gotten away from Kathy Griffin using obscenities, they had decided that what they'd do is they'd start doing drugs on the air. You know, she's the girl that showed up with a fake decapitated Donald Trump head that scared the heck out of Donald Trump's son. So now this year, says Brent Bozell, they're doing pot and getting stoned. Yeah. Back in the background, Anderson Cooper, as a part of the mothership coverage, was sitting there laughing. But now he says, well, I was very surprised by the pot-soaked New Year's Eve segments, trying to pull back a little bit and say, I really didn't want to do any of that. Yeah, okay, whatever. Welcome to bad mistakes on broadcasting that affect your career, Anderson. You need to stand up and say, no. Hey, look, I know how difficult it is. Me turning down that drunk stunt cost me a job, but I'm not going to get on the air and get drunk for anybody's amusement. It's not what you come here for. Lettuce bowling. They wanted me to bowl with lettuce on a show like this. You bet, you genius, you. Stop it. Glenn Beck's radio broadcast tore him apart. Pat Gray said, CNN showed America how to do bong hits. Yeah. Fox News host Laura Ingraham said, now we'll see how all this works out for the country. More potheads, increases in cases of schizophrenia, psychosis, impaired driving, as big weed makes billions. Yeah. Taisha Fernandez tweeted that 70 people were arrested with less than an ounce of marijuana was found at a house party in Tennessee, when nobody claimed that the police arrested everybody. Nice job, CNN. Really good work. Gonzo journalism. Cannot get gonzo enough for me quickly enough. I'm hoping that you guys disappear quickly. The executive producer of the Wells Report is the Philip Brown. Our technical producer is Mike Hawkins. My name is John David Wells. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy yourself this evening.
All right, so good show today.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
All right. All right, man.
I am going to, now don't forget, when you turn off, when you break contact,
Yeah.
with someone like us, when you break contact, make sure that you turn off you break contact with the Comrex too.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, important. All right, my friend.
All right, gotcha, man.
I'm gonna break with you right this minute.
All right, that'll work, man.
See you. Bye.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Okie doke. Ah. All right, beloveds. I'm going to leave you. Good night, Arletta. Take good care. Have yourself a good time. Bye-bye.